Hey, hello, and welcome. I'm Steven Saunders, the host of Core Move, Central Oregon Real Estate Market Update. And today we're going to have industry chats with Adam Ross. He is a lender with Select Lending Services here in Bend. And it'll be a pretty good one. So hope you enjoy it. Do want to quickly touch on the Giveback Realtor. You're going to be seeing this branding picking up. This refers to the program that I have in giving back between 5 and 50% of whatever I make in real estate back to the community. And as always, I'm part of Avenue Realty based out of Bend. They are the brokerage that powers all of this amazing stuff that I do. And so just want to give a shout out and thank you to Laura Blossi and the team there. So with that said, let's get into it. Let's have our chat with Adam. Well,
hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How's your day going?
It's good.
Well, let's get into it. It is Monday. It's just afternoon on Monday, and another week in the fall, another week of new rates. The interest rate environment is affecting the real estate market, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. You are really on the forefront of all those kind of changes. You work with buyers all the time that are doing the dance, trying to dodge the crazy rates and lock in the best program for themselves as they're buying. And I'd love to just let you riff on what it is that you're seeing and what the market is bringing to you.
Sure. Yeah. So, I think probably the best word that I could use to describe today's interest rate environment would probably be challenging. Um, I'm trying to stay diplomatic with my assessment of it. But yeah, it's kind of it's a tough scene out there for buyers right now, and especially those kind of up and coming buyers, first time home buyers. That demographic is getting squeezed a little bit, which is unfortunate. But instead of just kind of commiserating with my clients who fall into that category, I think the best thing to do in these tough times is look for solutions where there are some, and focus our energy on a path to success rather than just kind of playing the woe is me game. So I think that's what I'm choosing to do, and I'm having those conversations with my buyers who are in that situation, and kind of feel like a little bit of just anxiety about what they can accomplish and when they can accomplish it. So yeah, I think it's just best to remain positive, to remain active, to remain educated on what's going on and informed, and and then I think ultimately that'll lead most people to the end goal of home ownership, ideally.
Yeah, I'd be curious to ask, what sort of concerns and objections specifically you're hearing from your clients and buyers. I'm guessing you probably have people that you've been working with now for a few months, and they've been watching things unfold. The summer months seem to be a bit of a pump fake in terms of it started off like it was going to be a pretty hot summer, and then it was pretty active, but it was definitely a thinner market. Inventory was still pretty thin. Sellers were selling just because they had to. Buyers were moving. A lot of the move up buyers, right? Families that are looking for that bigger home and parlaying that equity into something new, were kind of like, well, wait, we're good for right now. But a lot of the downsizers still took the opportunity in the summer. Some families still moved. I'm finding for myself, the conversation at open houses has changed. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really revolving around, look, I know I can only afford this much a month. How do we make this work? This feels out of my price range. So that kind of conversation has been happening, and those seem to be really specific. I'll say objections, right, that are based around monthly affordability
Mm-hmm.
and the sort of anxiety around the interest rates that seem to kind of in a one directional change, getting higher and higher every month. So I'd be curious to hear from you, like what exactly are you hearing from your clients, and how are you advising them through this period of time?
Yeah, so I mean, like you mentioned, I think first and foremost, and the vast majority of the objections that I come across with my clients, and just anecdotally having conversations around town with people in the industry or people not in the industry that are just watching and reading the news and curious about what's going on. The overwhelming majority of those objections are centered around interest rates and the fact that they're going up and they continue to go up and there seems to be no end in sight, and my affordability um is being cratered, day by day almost. So uh what I try to do, like I said before, is remain in a position to look for answers, to look for solutions. So, for instance, with the company that I work for specifically, Select Lending Services, we've got a few different programs that are designed to help alleviate that stress that's centered around interest rates. So, for instance, we've got one called Rate Rebound, which entitles our buyers the opportunity to refinance an unlimited amount of times in the first 5 years of their mortgage with no lender fees, no appraisal fee, no credit report or tax certification fee, and $1,000 credit towards any additional third-party fees. So it ends up
That's
saving
huge.
our, yeah, it's great. And it ends up saving our buyers about $4,000 on their refinance. And like I said, they can do it on an unlimited basis for the first 5 years of their mortgage. So, you think about it just from that perspective, you've got most likely at least two opportunities in 5 years to refinance. And so, like I said, it kind of removes that level of stress and anxiety from the equation when you're thinking about, should I purchase now with the rates being as high as they are? Um, and then I think,
So can I just be clear? So this would appeal to a buyer that is anticipating refinancing, right? And they just want to remove the, kind of the upfront cost, because generally there is a cost, right, with refinancing. You've got to pay your lenders. There's points involved and all that. So you guys are
correct.
kind of removing that sort of stickiness, but a buyer would still need to get into a product at current market rates, right?
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
like off the top, without any sort of other tools that are available, like seller concessions and those kinds of things.
Yeah. And I think, that the rate rebound program is kind of designed to be like an after the fact addition to, um, the buyer's playbook in a sense. So yeah, like you said, it kind of helps after the fact with the refinance, but up front, and what we're doing to enhance clients' affordability. Uh, I think it's a few different ways you can go with that conversation. So, one, I think buyers today have a little bit more leverage than they did, especially like a couple of years ago when rates were low and the market was hot and there was multiple offers on almost every property that was on the market. That's just not the case today. And so if you're in the market to purchase, maybe you've got the opportunity now to work with the seller as far as offering concessions to cover some of your closing costs, so you don't have to come in with as much money out of pocket because savings are difficult today. Or use some of those seller concessions to buy the interest rate down. And you could do that either permanently or temporarily, depending on what works for you. And so I think it's just important to talk to a lender that has those interests of yours as a buyer at heart. So, not just looking to work with someone on a transactional basis, but someone who appreciates and cares for the relationship that you're building from, a lender to a client and vice versa, and really goes the extra mile to think about uh, how you can get into a home that you love and do it in a way where maybe you just didn't think it was possible at first. Some of those like kind of more outside the box kind of ideas.
Got it. Yeah, I mean the relationship is really key, and it sounds like some of the programs that you're offering are almost like financial Legos, right? And then other Legos come from working with a realtor that's knowledgeable, like me, within the transaction space. Working with the seller. There's actually, you don't need to flex your kind of creativity muscles until the market starts turning, and then you've got to get creative. And so, we've known about seller concessions that were kind of motivating. The reality is, if you are a buyer, this is a really great market because the sellers that are on the market need to sell their home, so they're, whether it's spoken or not, are pretty motivated, and that's a lever for a buyer. But then there's also, I've run into to some homeowners and buyers that remember, right? I don't know if you've heard this, but like remember when rates were double digits. I remember those days back in the 70s. Like this isn't as high as it could go. And I'm thinking, but yeah, there's a lot of buyers who've never seen rates go this high. This is the first time for them. And so there's like, how high is it going to go? Could it go up to 18%, whatever else? But even in that, if you're looking at it as a buyer, it's like, if rates go up, well, then you're going to want to buy now because you're going to get a better, right? It's going to be better than getting a higher rate later, or you're going to be renting and then rent's going to go up because of whatever else. So if rates are going to go up, then you want to buy now. And if rates are going to go down, well, then you can refinance. So you might as well just buy now, especially if there's programs like the rate rebound that are going to hedge you against these few years, because whatever the current environment is, running really hot, high interest rates, high inflation, there's a lot of macro forces, as I understand it, and maybe you can speak to this too, but they're trying to rein all this stuff in. So there's nobody wants interest rates to be running high like this for the long term. I mean, it hurts more than just home buyers. It hurts businesses. It hurts social programs. It furthers the whole deficit spending debate, right? Is fueled even more when rates are higher, and government debt is accelerating because of the higher interest rates. So all those things are like incentives to rein the interest rate back in, and it's just buying time until that happens. I don't know. I'm just riffed, but do you have any thoughts about that? Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, no, it does. And I think what I would say, and this is the same piece of advice that I give my clients when I talk to them, usually in our initial conversation, and that would be that it's important to remember that, quote unquote, timing the market, I think, it's completely unique to the individual buyer's circumstance and scenario. And what I mean by that is you don't really know where you stand financially, or as far as how far along in the process you are and how close you theoretically are to purchasing a home, until you talk to a professional, meet with a real estate agent, meet with a lender, excuse me, have your finances scrubbed, know exactly where you stand. And if where you stand lines up with your goals for home ownership, then there's your answer right there. It doesn't have to be a doomsday scenario right now where interest rates are high and it's impossible for me to buy and it just doesn't make sense. I'm going to wait for 2 years, whatever the excuses are. And in some cases, those excuses are valid, but a lot of the times people are pleasantly surprised by uh, where they're ultimately where their circumstance ends up being, meaning they are not aware that they're able to purchase. And all it takes is these kinds of conversations that we're having, the advice that we're giving, and then they get comfortable. And that's the most important thing. You want people to feel comfortable and feel good and feel confident about the decisions that they're making. And that's ultimately what we're here for, is to provide advice and guidance and set them on that path to home ownership in a responsible way. So,
Right.
I mean, I may have simplified it a little too much there, but I think it's important to understand because, not everyone is aware of what their options are. And there's a
I mean,
lot of
that really
assumptions.
resonates with me, right? Because it certainly seems to me that there's some people who aren't even going to look at the open house for the home that they want because they're like, it can't do it. It's not going to work, right? They've closed the door on even the discussion or the exploration with somebody like you, right? That can look at the financials, look at their picture, and come up with a strategy on how to navigate the market, which is, that would be in their best interest to, at the very least, explore what the possibilities are, because life's going to happen. I mean, you can't necessarily be on pause indefinitely. There's a cost to that, right? The cost is, I like to frame it as an interest-only loan if you are renting, right?
Yeah.
If you're staying in a home and hunkering down, waiting until, say you're living in Portland and you want to move to Central Oregon, but you're just going to wait because interest rates are high and you don't know what you can get. Well, in that case, it's like everything is adjusting. Everything's in that environment. So you're going to, prices go down when interest rates go up in all the markets where that affects. So if you're selling in Portland and moving to Central Oregon, it's not going to cost you really anything there. You're going to have a lower price you're selling at and maybe a lower price that you're buying at across the board. So that ends up being a wash. And or you could just be letting your life kind of pass you by. You won't take that job. You won't be moving your mom to wherever she needs to be or moving closer to her to have that time with family. And you're just letting the kind of environment sort of dictate where your life will be lived. When you can just talk to an advisor and help figure out how to strategize that life for yourself, which is really cool. That we're here to work with folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just one thing I would add to what you said is I think, especially today, given, the kind of the economic environment that we're living in, and the rising interest rates, all of that, the prospective recession, there's a lot of theoretical risk associated with decision making today, probably more so than there was in the past, or when times are good, when the economy is strong. So when you think about risk and you think about what am I going to do, or what do I need to do, and is this the right time to do it? So, and by that I mean,
Can you tell me more about what you mean by decision making risk?
yeah, so I think decisions being made by whoever it is, families, individuals, people that are thinking about buying a home, they're worried that it might not be the right time, that interest rates are too high, that I can't afford this. The list goes on. But I'm kind of piggybacking on what you just said in that, I'm just talking about this in a very long-winded way, but there's no risk associated with finding out where you stand, with talking to me about your financial situation and filling out an application so I can tell you what you qualify for. There's absolutely no risk. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that, and you'll know exactly where you stand, and you'll have a little bit more peace of mind because of it. And the same thing goes if they were to talk to you and you could tell them, okay, well, given what your price range is because you just spoke to a lender and you've been pre-qualified and all of this is no cost to you, I can show you homes that fall into that category that you can afford. So I think people don't understand how easy this process can be if they just kind of try to block out all the noise in the media and from their neighbors and from friends and family who, are telling them the sky is falling. And it's just,
Right.
it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. It really, as you said before, like it really depends. Each person's situation is their own. Each person's situation is different from others. I mean, of course, millions of people are going through similar things, but your particular circumstances under which you are deciding to move, deciding to make a purchase like this or a sale like this is your own. The life circumstances that lead to that are your own. And yeah, it definitely seems to make sense to more knowledge is power, right? The more you explore your options and understand your situation and how it relates to the market forces, the more empowered you can be as a buyer, right, to make the right decision. And seller in that case, because right, usually a seller is going to sell in one case and buy in another, right? So it does affect them as well, and it also has implications for how you go into the market, what your expectations are, in terms of timing. I'm sure all of that's shifted as well, right? It used to be one of the features that you could put in your offer as a buyer is, well, how quickly you're going to close. And maybe today there's different bargaining chips that come with the quality of the loan, and in other components that maybe you could speak to, where that calculus is shifting a little bit with the market.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but if you were to rewind a couple years back, it was, buyers definitely did not have as much leverage as they have today. So, if you were making contingent offers and you couldn't close quickly, I mean, you were going to be left standing on the sidelines in most cases because there just wasn't any incentive for sellers to accept an offer that came with strings attached. And now, you've got a little bit more freedom as a buyer to explore those different options that might be required for you to make a purchase. So, I think we're just, and I can't speak for, the whole lending landscape, but for us specifically at Select Lending, we're doing everything we can to put our clients in the best possible position to succeed. And so we've got, some kind of unique and proprietary ways that we can help them. I mean, we've got, just to plug another product really quickly, we've got a product called Home Fund It, which it's essentially like a GoFundMe for buyers to raise gift funds
That's
for
awesome.
their down payment and closing costs. And they can crowdsource their social network platforms in order to do so. So, you can farm out your, your home buying story to your friends, your family, your coworkers, your pickleball teammates. I mean, believe me when I say, you name it, you can crowdsource it. And then you can use those funds, if you're having trouble saving, but you've got, let's say you just don't have a whole lot saved, but you've got good income, you've got good credit, all those other pillars are in place, but you just need help raising the funds. Well, that's where we come in, and you use Home Fund It, and we're off and running. So that's just an example of something we're doing to try to
I mean,
help.
so tell me, because this sounds like a really like a novel application of crowdfunding, right? Like the GoFundMe for a house. How has that worked out? Like I could see, for example, if I was getting married and I was like, hey, in lieu of gifts or something, just maybe you can help us get a home, kind of a story. But how frequently is this program being used, and how are people using it? Like, what can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, you kind of just answered your question just then when you said if somebody's getting married. So newlyweds are, that's our target audience.
Okay,
Newlyweds, young home buyers who may have just graduated. So you use this option as, like you said, like an alternative to a wedding gift, or an alternative to a graduation gift. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to only be used by that demographic, but it's a
right.
perfect example of the opportunity to use it. Um, so, we're just trying to help whoever we can. And,
I mean, I
you
could
know,
see a lot of really interesting applications for that. Even within as recognizing community members that are doing a lot by say somebody who's been volunteering, or an educator who's beloved in town, but they've been renting, and this being like a community appreciation almost, right? Crowdfunding from social capital could be really interesting, or employers could, I know that there's oh my gosh, what was there's companies that do like the IVF programs, right? They'll pay for you know uh, pay for the a portion of the medical that's required for um, getting in vitro done, right? So maybe there could be programs that companies do that can contribute to pools like this over time. Um, yeah, it seems like a really really cool way to get more flexible about how we get past that stumbling block for a lot of people, which is saving enough to buy a home. I mean, that's hard to do, with rising costs and all that.
yeah,
So
I think it's just a matter of, because we can't control the environment that we're in. Um, and we can't control a buyer's affordability. But what I think we can do, and this is what, we are doing, is we're just creating more paths to home ownership. And eventually one of those paths is going to open up for almost every buyer, and they're going to be able to go down it and ultimately succeed. So I think that's kind of the underlying theme of what we do, is we just try to create more opportunities. And because at the end of the day, I mean, that's all you can do, especially in a
right,
challenging market like this, is you just try to give yourself and well, by yourself, I mean your clients, as many opportunities as possible to succeed. So
that's options. Yeah,
I think if I could, sum it up, that would be how I would do it. Is, it's a matter of opening as many doors as possible.
cool. Well, we're about half hour in. We should probably wind it down. I want to quickly just touch on a weekly event that I do. I don't know if you've come. We met one time over at Fika. I'm gonna see if I can cut over and see if this actually works. Let's see if 1 second here. This might have more information than just the stuff. Yeah, so it's kind of cut off, but you can see on Wednesdays. This is actually not right, so I'm going to back out of that. I will have to fix that. But on Wednesdays from 10 to 11 at Fika, I have my community coffee hour. And if you ever want to come, or any of you guys watching want to come hang out, ask about this, ask about real estate topics, local to Central Oregon. I have a presence in Redmond, Bend, and Sisters. I live in Sisters, but I'm in all three. I know Adam you live in Bend, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And you kind of also are servicing the Central Oregon market. Really cool, dude. Maybe you'll come and join me for one of these coffee hours and be there to answer
Definitely.
questions. I'm also there to speak to my community Giveback program details and getting your thoughts about where the issues are, what matters to you on the things that we want to fix in town or just improve. I've had a couple closings, and they're contributing to local charities around. So in time, those will be coming up. But Adam, can you talk a little bit about where people should find you, who you're looking for as a client, so people can reach out?
I'm looking for anyone who is curious about what their options are, who is passionate about ultimately, becoming a homeowner and going down that path, and just wanting to equip themselves with some more knowledge and information, and just really get a sense of where they stand. I think, like I mentioned before, I think it's important for us to inform and educate and give our clients all the tools we possibly can to become homeowners. And so if that is something that you feel like fits your needs and suits you, you can find me directly. You can email me at adam.ross at selectlendingservices.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at adam.ross. And then if you just want to search Adam Ross on Facebook, you can find me there too, in Bend, Oregon. So, yeah.
And I'll go ahead and add those usernames and links where I can in the description. This will be up on YouTube, so there'll probably be snippets all over town, all over Instagram, and the socials. This is the first time that we're doing a format like this. It was a lot of fun for me recording it with Adam, but it's really important that you're finding value from this as well. And I would love to hear back if you're liking this kind of a dialogue where you can tune in and get kind of some other views of the world than just the market update numbers, which I'll have to do another recording for that. But yeah, please give feedback. You guys are shaping what we create together, and there's plenty of amazing professionals in Central Oregon. This is just the start of a really beautiful trend. So I hope to have you back, man. We can talk, maybe check in a few weeks with the market changing, and
Most
you guys
definitely
have any new products. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to. This was fun.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.
All right. See you, dude.
Thanks, Steven.